Okay, hey brides, what's up? It's me, it's Kate Roberto, the creative visionary designer for Kate and Amber, and I'm kind of refilming this. I had done it earlier and I didn't realize I needed to do something else. It's like teeny tiny thumbnail. Anyways, it's all about DIY here. But I'm actually wanted to talk to you about mainly the main 5 questions that you need to be asking yourself every time you are interviewing and touring different venues for your wedding. Now, there's going to be, every once in a while, you're going to hear some weird noises. It's my cat, Nike. I've got 2, but this is my retired kitty. She's about, Nike, what are you? She's about 14, 15 years old. Anyways. So there are 2 different types, right? You're going to have a one venue wedding, which is where you're going to have literally everything all encompassed in one location. You're going to have the ceremony, reception, cocktail hour, all in one place. And even honestly, you could have your photos there as well. So that's going to make things a lot simpler for you, your wedding party, and all your guests. But sometimes you're going to have to go with a 2 venue location. Locations or venues for your wedding. A lot of times this means those of you with religions or family or maybe your partner's family that have requirements that you need to be married in a church or some sort of religious, I don't want to say just a church, but you know what I mean. Where you need to be married there, right? And then you go elsewhere to a different facility or venue for your actual reception and cocktails and photos, which requires a lot more coordinating. And then you also have to have transportation rentals, depending on how many guests you have. I mean, there's a lot of details in there. So in looking at your different venues, whether it's ceremony or reception, let's just say venues, period, okay? You always want to ask yourself, one is that, do you have a personal connection? Is there something there that maybe that was where you had your first date, or this is where you met, this is where you guys go all the time for vacations and stuff like that, or where you go to unwind as a couple, or maybe you're doing, you're having your wedding in, a family member's home and backyard, which is super common, happened all the time. And there's nothing wrong with that, but a lot of times that's a connection that a lot of people put as a high factor on their list of choice in choosing their venues. 2, is it even available on the date that you and your partner want to get married? If not, but you really like the venue or really love the venue or you have to be there, you may have to settle with going on a different date, hopefully within the timeline, really close in the timeline of when you want to get married. Some venues, if it's all about the venue and you just want to be there, you can change your date and have it be a different time of year or be at that actual season and wait another year. Hey, your choice. Also, you want to think about the capacity, which is, can the venue actually accommodate the number of people, of guests, but also including yourself and the different vendors that you're working with? It's a space, right? It's a safety thing. And they also need to be able to, also another thing besides capacity, and I'm kind of going on a little long on this tangent, is that you also have to think about, do you need to have something that can accommodate handicap, because you're going to need ramps. You need to make sure that when you check the capacity, that you're really doing capacity based on the number of guests that you're inviting versus the number of guests that actually show up. Because as we all know, when we throw parties and shindigs, we have people that we invite, but there's a percentage that don't even show up. And then there's a small percentage that do. And you're like, you didn't even respond. I had no idea you were coming. I've got some friends like that. I really do. I'm not pointing anybody out. I'm not calling any names, but they know who they are. Anyways, personal taste, right? So now this comes down to all Marie Kondo is that, does this venue bring you joy? But does it? Does it creep you out? Do some of those stained glass windows kind of creep you out? You know, is there something with the lighting and even the architecture that just feels kind of dark and depressive, and you're having issues with that? Some people are very in touch with their feelings and their beings in space. In space, not out in space, but in the space that they're in, you know, and they're sensitive to that. And there's nothing wrong with that. But that's a factor. It's a factor, you guys. I'm sorry. You want to also think about if there is any kind of accommodations nearby. Because let's just say you're going to have some out of town guests. You will. Are there hotels, motels nearby that they can get to and stay at and not be cumbersome? Is there a parking lot or garage nearby? That's something I had to deal with at my wedding, is that I got married in Santa Cruz, okay? And just above the boardwalk is this grand ballroom, okay? But we had nothing but public parking, and it was all paid parking. So I had to reserve in the parking lot across the street. I had to purchase discounted coupons, parking coupon tickets for all of my guests. You know, that's 200 plus guests that I had to give these guys to, and I had to pay for. I mean, that's something to consider as well. So, I mean, there's so many things. I mean, if you are going to be choosing a venue that carries kind of everything, know that some of it may be a la carte. You know, you may have to pay, you're going to pay extra when you're renting it for more than a couple hours for just a ceremony versus more like 5 to 8 hours for the full wedding. Know that time for setup and cleanup is it's included. Sometimes you have to pay extra if you want to have a longer evening and a longer, you know, just kind of fun and dance. I mean, it could be easily a few extra $100 just to have another hour or two later in the evening after, so nobody feels rushed in the wedding. I dealt with that. I paid extra. Oh my God. But again, you know, I wouldn't consider my wedding a destination, but it was easily for me and majority of my guests, it was easily a good hour and a half, 2 hour drive. So yeah, I wanted to make it worth their while. I wasn't going to make it be, you know, a 4 or 5 hour time slot so I could save myself, you know, $350 or whatever the price was. So I had to extend it. I wanted to make it worth everybody's while. So again, things to think about, right? So when you're doing your venues and you're shopping and doing these tours, you really need to have these things in mind. Sorry about that. Scam. And you need to have a really good estimate of the number of your guest list. Have an idea of that. Know if you have any family members, any of them, if not yourself included or your partner, that needs to have a ramp for, you know, handicap access. That's going to be needed, you know. So really, again, so things to consider when you're looking and you're shopping at your different venues. Do you have a personal connection? Either you and your partner together, or if it's a family, home and backyard, great. Is it even available on the date that you guys even want to get married? Is it available? If not, do you go somewhere else, or do you make it work and choose a different timeline? I know that's tough. Can it hold the number of guests that you're even inviting? Just ignore who's showing up, because usually who shows up is typically less than who you invite. So if it can accommodate the number of people you invite, then you should be pretty golden, and not have to worry about it too much. Does it bring you joy? being in the venue? It's a silly question, right? But does it bring you joy? I mean, would you really rent a place if you feel kind of weird and kind of creepy and a little awkward? No, of course not. Get it off your list. Two, we've already gone over two. Why am I saying the number two? I'm clearly on like 4 or 5. The accommodations, outside accommodations for your guests. Are there local motel hotels that are not that far away from you in this venue? And also, is there parking nearby? Because everybody needs to be able to park their car. And is there enough of it? That's another one you got to look into. And it's like, oh my God. And it starts to become overwhelming when you start planning your wedding. Girl, I get it. I've been there. I've done that. But honestly, once you get through some of those bare bones, like the venue, the date, the guest list, and your dress, things start to get a little bit smoother. A little bit smoother. As long as you don't put too much pressure on yourself. But, that's my cat. Anyways. So that's what I wanted to just kind of talk with you about. And I hope it helps you out a little bit in your search, in your journey. And good luck. Have fun. That's the best part. Have fun with it.